Well, hello and good morning, everybody. This is Jeremiah. I hope you're having a great Friday so far. We are going to have a great little webinar here on our portal. Going to be pretty darn neat. We have been adding all kinds of capability to it, and we have plenty planned. You know, we always from day one, we've always just assumed, to run a company, you gotta have a phone. You gotta have a phone number. You gotta let people call in, I mean, it's just my dad's thing because, he liked being able to do that. You just gotta be able to get them on the phone. Totally understandable. Um, but as we've continued to grow, there's certainly some things that can be kind of more self-service through the portal. Really helps us, as much as we do love talking to you to process a renewal payment. It just times 6,000, it kind of adds up. And so, we do need as best as possible for the simple things for you to be able to have this great self-service resource, which is the portal. And so we just continue to pad that out, but please don't think it's any way of secretly planning to take away our phone number access. We're always going to be available over the phone. Just want to give you this ability. And of course, what's great is it's there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So if we're on the other line talking to somebody else, or if it's after hours, you could check your tickets. You could do all sorts of things through the portal. So what Forrest is going to do is kind of walk us through all that. I am going to remind y'all this is being recorded. So it'll be up on the website for your reference. And also, you're watching this live with us, so we are here for your questions. I would recommend you click that Q&A button right now at the bottom of your screen, because not only is that going to make it a little quicker for you to type in any questions, but you'll also see the answers that we type to other people's questions. So it makes a great little resource while you're on this ride with us. But I think it's time to take this what about 30-foot leap into this pool and dive into the portal. So Forrest, let's take it away.
Thanks, Jer. Yeah, as you pointed out this morning, this does look like we're going into a portal right here. A little bit freaky, but join me, dive in, and we'll have a good time. This is me. My name's Forrest. I've been here for 11 years with Land Effects. I'm a jack of many trades. Um, some of the primary things that I do at Land Effects is development and design, including building the portal. So, any questions that you might have, I'm the right person to talk to for this situation. Um, we will be going over this outline, touching on the main points of the portal, the things you can do there, account management, registration, how you can view your licenses and installations, the data that you can access in the portal, your users list, and what some of our future plans are for the portal, of which we have many. Now, before I get started, this is kind of a rough overview of how the accounts work in the Land Effects system. There's the portal accounts are separate from our company profile in our admin system, and they're all tied together with email addresses and Land Effects support IDs. So they all reference each other. They're all together, but they contain different things. And this will make a little bit more sense when I go through the account registration process. But basically, your Land Effects support ID that verifies everything in our ecosystem. It's used extensively, and it's your identification number. And that connects with your company profile, which is where we have your support tickets, your user lists, your purchase records, your cloud data, and everything else. And then the portal accounts connect using the email and the support ID. It'll check our admin system for the email address as well as verify that support ID. And let me just show you what I mean by that. If we could jump over here real quick. If you were to create a new account in our portal system, it's going to ask you for a Land Effects support ID, which is required to have access to the portal. And even to register for an account, you have to validate that support ID first before you can get in. And then once you're in, we have access to all of this stuff, the cloud data, the users list, your tickets, and more. And that's all referencing these things and connecting them together. And one other thing to quickly touch on is what data is accessible inside the portal. These are all essentially cloud data types that you can access through the portal. You can see your project list and do very basic maintenance on the projects there, your preference sets, your custom plants, the plant user fields, the permission settings on your projects. You can import projects from LFX files in bulk. And we have a lot of future plans for other things that we'll build into the portal for you. A lot of which, like the managers in the system, the plant manager, the details manager, etc. Those are all migrating over the next little bit in the future to cloud-based, web-based dialogues, which means they'll be accessible through the portal. So it's really going to be a one-stop shop for maintaining and administering a lot of the data that's in your Land Effects account. Um, like I said, we are moving a lot of those dialog boxes to web-based, so they'll be in there, and it's going to be awesome. Let's just jump in. Let me show you more stuff in the portal. So once you're logged in, as you just saw that, the dashboard, just some basic stuff, um, some feeds that are nice, some news, events coming up. If you're in DC, join us at the ASLA. The party's going to be awesome. Um, Over here, it's telling me that I have an open ticket. So that's one of the main things you're going to be doing a lot of in the portal is using tickets and correspondences. Uh, and of course, the Land Effects update information. This always shows what the latest version is. And a list of some of the recent posts on the forum. This is a pinned post, so it's always up at the top. And what people are talking about. Lots of irrigation. Well, Steve Cook is very busy. Look at him. It's going to show you my posts. Of course, those are all just tests and plant comments. These are fun. If you haven't gotten into the plant comments, there is definitely a section in here where you can see people talking about different features of different plants, kind of like the back ends of the Wikipedia. So some basic stuff for your dashboard, kind of typical. As we go a little deeper into the portal, the account section, this is a good reference point. You're going to be able to see your support ID here in case you need to use it for something else. This is very important. That's very key bit of information. Make sure your support is updated, and that way you can access everything. If the support date expires and you don't pay your renewal, you will not be able to get into a lot of Land Effects features. Most of the software will just stop working. Your address, some basic information. You can also edit it here if you see a typo. And of course, that will create a ticket in our system, and we will validate that before we integrate it into your profile, just so that everything's nice and clean. and a couple of quick buttons around here to make sure you can access the things that you need: renewals, quotes, license management. A lot of these jump to different sections of the portal that we will see shortly. Moving on to the installs section. This is a big feature here that was revamped this year in conjunction with the release of FXCAD 2025. So, in general, you'll see a list of your land effects installations, and you'll be able to sort them by computer name, group them by the type of CAD that they have installed, etc., if that makes more sense. For some companies with large fleets of dozens and dozens and dozens of installations, this is extremely handy to group. But for my test clients' purposes, this is nice. Um, we also encourage you to use this interface if you are going to be adding new workstations to your fleets, because this way we can kind of track who's using what. This already has what locations you already have your land effects installation set up, so you know where, all of the instructions for the installation process will be a lot cleaner. You can choose your FX CAD and then click here. We will get you a serial number, and we will get you all of this information to make your installation process really smooth with fewer question marks. So it's a nice way, a nice clean interface to add and remove installations. Now, there's another feature here specifically for FX CAD users, and I know that's not everyone who's watching, but please bear with me. This part is interesting. Um, Autodesk has kind of changed the way that we do our FX CAD licenses with them as of this year. I'm sure you've heard about it. So it's more of a subscription base. So because of that, we've implemented a way to upgrade your FX CAD through the portal that's a lot cleaner and a lot easier for us to track and make sure everything's working correctly. So if you log into here and you see your computer has FXCAD 2024 and your FXCAD subscription is paid up with Land Effects, you'll see this handy little upgrade FXCAD button here. And this is the preferred way to install your version of FXCAD 2025. And that button will be there for any of your available installations that have access to the upgrade. And once I click this, it's going to create a ticket in our system. We're going to send information to Autodesk. We're going to get your activation code, your serial number, rather, and then we'll send it to you with the installation instructions. It's normally very quick. It's at the most, 2 business days, sometimes 3 if they're really, really lagging on their end. But most of the time, it's the same day. And that way, when you get your installation, you have everything you need. You have the serial number, you just plug it in during the installation process, and you're good to go. Otherwise, you have to install it as a trial, and it's cumbersome, and then you have to switch it over, and it's a whole pain. So that's this will flag on the installation that the upgrade was requested, and you'll get a ticket. You'll get an email right away with all that information. So this was all revamped this year to incorporate the upgrades, and I'm kind of proud of it. So fun stuff. Let's see. What else do we got going on? Let's move over to licenses. This is just a quick overview of the licenses that your company has with Land Effects. In this situation, my test company has 3 planting effects, 2 irrigation effects, and currently 3 2024 licenses. Now, you note that in that previous screen, I requested an upgrade to the 2025. Once I install 2025, that number will automatically shift and it would show 2024 2, 2025 1. And then once the 2 remaining computers are upgraded, those will all toggle over and then they will all show 2025. So it's kind of an automatic system. Another key feature here that you can access is this screen. I'm sure you're familiar with this. This is what the license manager looks like from AutoCAD when you open it. And it's basically the same dialog, just accessible through here. It's a good reference. You can also see the FX CAD licenses that are installed for your company. Um, Back to the licenses screen. Just a quick overview, a couple of handy buttons to jump you to the purchase page if you need to do some more maintenance. And when it jumps you to the purchase page, it automatically keeps your login information. So anything you do is pretty automatic. But now we can get into the meat and potatoes, the data. This is the fun stuff. There's 3 basic groups here, and of course, we're going to be adding a lot more coming up. But right now, we've got a project list accessible, custom plants, and custom plant user fields. So let's jump into projects. Now, this is great because a lot of times in CAD, you're so fixated on working on each project, but getting a big picture overview of the project list and some project list maintenance is a little bit more accessible through the portal. A couple of quick things that you can do. This is just showing your project list here, preferences, templates, and archived projects. Here you could just do a couple of quick things, like there is a typo here, so I will just delete that. And that's just very simple maintenance as far as title and description. But also I could mark it as archived, which would move it over into this category. And that's a category that you don't see in AutoCAD. It's hidden. It's essentially deleted. It's kind of a relic of the way the old system worked, but here it is, functional. And some of the other things that you can do here is import projects. In AutoCAD, you can only import one land effects project at a time. So in this system, we have, oh no, I lost my folder. Give me just a sec to find it. It is right here. So in this system, let's say you have an old workstation that you had installed previously. It sitting in the closet, but you needed to pull it out because it was local data from 2020 and you had some old projects on there that aren't in your cloud data. So this is great. This is a really handy feature. Also, if you're migrating from one computer to another that's local data or, cloud data, moving from local to cloud, a lot of situations where this is handy. Just drag and drop all of them over here. And it will vet the files. It'll say, hey, this guy right here, that one's already in your cloud project list. So I am just going to remove that one. It'll say, hey, that's not a project. Okay. All right. Thank you for letting me know. All right, let's upload those and put them in our system. So it's a lot easier than doing them one by one inside of AutoCAD. And once those are all updated, we can jump into here and see where they went. Here's our project list, and there they are. Shell Beach Resort was the one key one that I was looking for, and there it is. It wasn't there previously. So that's a handy tool used often, especially by us too as techs when we're working with someone who's doing a migration. Very handy. Another big feature here that is easier to maintain through the portal than it is through the CAD interface is working with permissions. Now, this is nice if you have a lot of users and you don't want all of them to be able to, say, overwrite your preference set that you have spent a lot of time working on. And then you have an intern that just changes some fonts and changes everything, and then all of a sudden everything's messed up, and you're like, okay, what's going on here? So this is a great way to lock that down and keep it tidy. Uh, some basic settings on a per project basis. Read write, this is like the default setting. Anybody can change anything. You can mark it as read only, which essentially makes it so you can't do anything to it. But the key feature here is by user or by group. So this is where in your user list, I can say, okay, Brian and Yara, I'm tired of you overwriting all of the changes we did. So you can only read it. Or you can also just make sure that there are certain things that only Amanda and me can administer. This is a great way to change all your settings. There's also groups. Let's see. I think I have one over here. This guy. I have applied my admin users group to this project, and those that preset shows that these two users are in that group, and they get those permissions assigned to them by default. Admin users, these two. And then when you assign the group, you can change it, the settings here, and it automatically applies to whoever's in that group. Real fun stuff. And of course, here's your preferences that you can also lock down. There we go. Yara, tired of you overwriting my settings. There you go. Perfect. Okay, let's go back into, I believe that was everything from the project lists covered. So going back to the data screen, we have custom plants. Now here is showing just the plants that I've added to the system. And just as a quick overview, that is referring to any of the plants in this screen that I add. Let's say I can't find a certain plant in our vast plant database, and I added it in here, a very custom plant. What that does is it goes to the back end, it goes to our system where Molly, our in-house horticulturist, vets every entry. She does the research, she looks at the plant, and she'll say, no, this plant is legit. I will approve it. And when she approves it, it will be available for all the plants to see. So if you've added a custom plant and you don't see it here, that means that it was a legit plant and it's available for all of our users. So in that sense, our plant database acts as a sort of wiki style plant database. So what that means is if you see plants here that are your custom plants, they are either plants that she hasn't looked at yet or plants that she has rejected for one reason or another. So that might be a fun inquiry to send an email to Molly and ask why she rejected one of your plants. But if you have custom plants here that you use regularly, as I know many of you do, you can do some basic maintenance here, just like with projects. If you see a typo, you can change it here. That is the feature that you cannot do in CAD at all. And we have had some clients reach out, which is why this interface is here. Pretty handy to do that. And if you uncheck this, it'll take a sec and it will populate with our entire plant database. Just as a reference, it's a limited interface, just the names only at this point. but a handy feature nonetheless. And this guy over here, plant user fields, this section is where you can maintain your custom fields for your plant data. And let me just show you what that looks like in AutoCAD if you're unfamiliar. Um, if you look at the data of any of the plants, you'll see down here these extra fields. These are our custom user groups, custom user fields for this company that's connected with your support ID. So for instance, very common usage is those sorts of fields, but I have a typo here. I know that that's supposed to be 8. And so if I save that in the portal, now when we go into here, it'll show 8 and it's been updated. Oh, and of course, here's another portal login for any of our web dialogues where you can change any of the data, including the plant database. You have to log in here as well with your portal login. So that was kind of neat. It showed that update right away. And I can add more groups. I can add more entries under each group and administer it all through here. Now, this is company wide. This isn't tied to your specific profile, as with as with all of the data here, actually. It's all tied to your support ID. So if you change something here, your coworker will see that as well. Fun stuff in the future. There will be many more options here, and it's going to look fantastic. We're probably going to spice it up a little bit. Moving on to the support page, uh, all of your recent tickets can be accessed here. And you'll see all of the stuff that we've got going on with this company, all of our interactions. Here is an open ticket. You can see all the history. And of course, I can add a new comment to it. You can also make a new ticket. Anytime you get an email and you click the link in the email to reply to the ticket, you'll see this interface pop up in a web browser. And we have this set up so that you don't have to be logged into the portal to respond to this ticket. That makes it really convenient for a lot of people who don't use the portal as often as they should. So you'll see that same interface in a web browser, but it's also accessible through here. And of course, we have a lot of documentation on all of our features. So highly recommend that you use our knowledge base that Jason painstakingly maintains, and everything's here for you. So, like Jeremiah said, we have a phone number, we have a chat here. Oh, look, it says that I'm online to help. That's fun. Um, we have a lot of different means that you can communicate and you can reach out to us. But we also have so much information, so much here that you can access yourself, um, whether it's maintaining your projects, looking through documentation, finding a solution to your problem, fixing a typo in your custom plant, etc. Over here, the last little section of the portal is the users list. And this has been a little bit of a source of confusion because this is currently showing a list of the land effects users as we show them in our admin system. So not all of these users have a portal account per se, but once they do, it's tied to this user list. So this is the master user list either way. You can do some basic maintenance here. You can look here. I know for a fact that my my friend Jean-Paul Sartre, he was a student intern when he started, but he is now a landscape architect. So you can change their titles, you can edit their names, you can change their email addresses if that changes. Um, you can also make them a portal admin. Now, this is an interesting feature because this is separate from the permissions in the project permissions screen that we were just looking at. This is portal admins. So the portal admins have certain places in the portal that they can access, one of which is that project permission screen. So if you want, say, some of your regular employees to not be able to access this user's screen and change anything in here, this screen right here that we're looking at is only accessible by portal admins. Now you can see that I'm up here. I am the primary contact listed for this company in the Land Effects admin system. The primary contact is always, by default, the ad portal admin as well. And of course, the email newsletter subscription status. I like this company because they are all subscribed. Beautiful. Um, so that is the basic gist of the user section of the portal. Um, Jeremiah, do we have any questions?
You must be answering everybody's questions in real time because we haven't had anyone chime in.
Okay, okay, well that's a good sign. Um, it's been
But I
a
think,
thorough
yeah,
presentation.
yeah, but I think, definitely, I think you hit on a good point with the users section here, and I think that, that is definitely on our list to kind of merge things even more, and it's definitely a head scratcher, and that's kind of why it's, yeah, there's this list of users here, and they go, but when I go into the permissions for a project, it's a different list of users. And it's like, yeah, it's a good point. How do we possibly kind of have a single list of users? And it's really, in case anyone's curious, basically what where all this comes from is, you do still have people with local data. So people with local data are clearly going to see a different list of users than what's in the portal, which is of course on the cloud. And so it just kind of has continued that way that the cloud list is technically separate from the permissions available from within the software. But as more and more people, of course, are switching over to cloud data, and that becomes the default, it's letting us meld things more. And obviously a lot of these things with we get into the features of the portal with the data, um, you know only applies to people with cloud data. And so it's just definitely a harbinger of the future of just kind of everything cloud, everything in one place, everything connected, obviously just easier, easier, easier. So that's definitely the generalized roadmap. And at some point, just kind of really just kind of leaving the local data people behind. They're going to miss out on all this capability because they insist on using local data, which, we have been strongly recommended switching to cloud data since it rolled out in 2016.
Yeah, another small wrench in that is that these are also names, the computer usernames.
Hmm.
So that's another wrench where we have to figure out how to tie that to portal users, which are tied to list of users in our system, etc. So
Exactly. And a computer name can change and a username can change. And then so how, what should be the authority on that? Because someone just, because it happens all the time, someone gets married and their username changes. And then, of course, that's always the problem when you get your name changed after marriage. All the places you have to change it, remember to log into the Land Effects portal. Just put that on the list right after the DMV, but before the Social Security. But
yeah, it's right up there, high priority.
But we did get a couple questions have popped in here. Uh, Steve Cook was very good idea for users. He's wondering if we could have groups of users. Very good idea. That's always very handy. So making it easy for people to group them by job role or location, things like that. That's a great idea.
That is a great
And
idea, Steve. Going on the list.
look at that. Look at that. Keep it up. And then a couple other ones. Someone asked how to get the badges. So let's be sure to talk about badges. But before that, real quickly, Peter asks to just quickly show how to add a new user.
How to add a new user. So currently, we don't have an interface in the portal to add a new user. What we currently recommend is that they go here and create a new account themselves. So what they'll need is they'll need the company support ID, fill all this out, and it'll go through our system. It'll vet everything. And then once they've registered with the support ID, it'll then appear in the users list. So that is our current process. Obviously, we can look at changing that. We have had a lot of requests to have a system in here to just add a new user,
You know, we
and it would.
could too is maybe we could just not switch a new user. Maybe it's just an invite button. And so they can just type in an email address and it'll just send someone an invite link with the support ID, maybe. Now that could be kind of a neat way to do
Yeah,
it.
that might be a nice way to do that. That would kind of streamline that process a little
Because of
bit.
course there's the whole issue of the password and the validation of the email address. And so that's why it has to go through that. But
That
yeah.
right,
But yeah,
perfect.
but badges, we have to show how to get badges. And we want to know ideas for new badges. We have had a lot of fun inventing some of these badges.
We have. So you'll see a lot of these are forum based. Sherlock Holmes started 10 different ones. The Voice posted 100 replies. Official Land Effects team member. So that's one exclusive badge that you guys can't have. um, there are also other fun ones that are related to the plant database. Contributor status, seedling. That is if you've made a lot of edits to the plant data. Now, let me just show you specifically what we're talking about. If you add one of these tags, if you're logged into your Land Effects portal, that is, hold on. All right. If you're logged in and you add a tag, that counts as an edit to the plant database. So that is something that really helps Molly a lot, like we discussed about the wiki status of the plant database. So this we're trying to encourage you. Help us with the plants. Help us add data. We'll give you these cool badges that no one else has. And our in-house guy, Paul, designed these and animated them, and they're just so slick. This is the master one right here. The plant guru, recognized by our team as excellence in plant data editing. So there's only 3 of those so far. Who are they? Oh, well, that's us. And oh, who's this? David Christiani. Excellence, David. So that's pretty fun. Um, yeah, so help us with the plant data and we'll give you some badges.
Yeah, we do have right, we have badges planned for the trainer.
We
So
sure
we,
do.
yeah, completing the trainer will get badges, and then the long-term future for the trainer planned is that we will roll out, hopefully a good. The goal is at least just minimum of 10 a year. So the trainer will the newsletter will say, hey, here's a new trainer challenge video. And if you complete it, you get a badge. And so kind of keeps you up on your land effects skills, but it'll be always helpful in promoting a new feature, is what we're hoping for that. So we're hoping to get that started next year. Is kind of a new expansion of the trainer. But if you have other neat little ideas on badges, we'd love to hear it. We did get another quick question from Steve, Mr. Need a Badge for Steve. I don't know what that one's going to be. But can admin portal users, can they delete users, or is that something that only we can do?
Um, Only the admin portal users can delete users.
Oh, okay, so
That
they can delete users. So that's helpful to
yes.
clean up that user list.
Yes, exactly. If there's an old employee who's no longer there, and that will remove that user from the list in our system, but it will also make a little ticket say so and so deleted. It'll say in this particular situation, if I did it in our system, it will say, oh, Forrest from the portal removed Simone de Beauvoir from the list of users. So that way we can reference it. If it was a mistake, we'll see the record of it. All righty. Well, I think that's just about everything. We're at 41 minutes.
Yeah, and yeah, just to, and kind of reiterating what Forrest mentioned, the interesting little bit of SketchUp, if anyone's ever used our SketchUp plugin, is they don't have a dialog box to their programming, their API for add in an extension for SketchUp. There's no ability to create a custom dialog box. It's just a web page. So those dialog boxes in SketchUp are just simply HTML web pages, which is actually very helpful rather than having to be a separate language. Like in AutoCAD and in a lot of other programs, creating dialog boxes is a real pain. But so what it's really pushed us to do is to say, well, wait a minute, if we have to make an HTML dialog box for SketchUp, why don't we just use that same dialog box over in Rhino and Revit? And at that point, why don't we do that as well in CAD? And so the kind of that's the sort of long-term future of Land Effects is you're going to see more of our dialog boxes switching to being web-based because it is just simply easier. Well, technically not web-based, HTML. There'll be local HTML in almost every case. But what that lets us do is have that same dialog box. So the revised plant manager for SketchUp and Revit and Rhino is going to be right here on the portal because it's HTML. It's very easy for us to port. And so looking to get the plant manager, the ref nut manager, the detail manager, the irrigation manager, all those here in the portal. So you can assemble the equipment and the plants for a project. You can edit them all without using a license. Really giving a really great managerial sort of view to projects to look things over. I mean, to think that you don't have to fire up CAD and grab a license just to kind of look over the irrigation equipment that someone has assembled for their project. What a great thing. Someone just sends you a quick email and says, I think I got everything ready. Am I ready to go? And you can just do it through the portal. So that is all pending, and I will really look forward to seeing the look on your guys' face when we do that. We did have one last question here from Leanne. She's a single part-time user. Does she need to set up a portal account or can she use the website for support and documentation? Um,
Well, that's
yeah,
actually a great question.
that's a very good question. I would say it's a good idea to get a portal, but yeah, it's not technically required, right, Forrest? I mean,
No, you can still access all of our documentation. I'm going to log out, and everything you need is still in here, and you can access everything you want. Um, the only thing that you won't be able to access on the website is your tickets and the history. But like I said earlier, you can reply to those with the links from the email, and that will open up in a web page and it will not require a portal login. So you'll be able to interact with existing tickets. You just won't be able to look at the older tickets and reopen them easily. Um, so basically, you can access most of what you need, but it's still a good idea to get a portal account.
yeah, and and we're definitely getting there. At some point, it very likely will be required. We are getting very close to the point where it is technically required for downloading the installer for FXCAD. We've found a way where it is not technically required yet, but it is close enough. It's validating the support ID. So we have a method where there is still a validation going just to control those FXCAD downloads has been very helpful. So the long-term future is, very much like I've seen a lot of our other software providers. They'll say, thank you for your purchase. You can download the software in the portal, and you have to go and create your portal account. And I've grown to appreciate it from some software vendors. Of course, at first I was like, why don't you just give me the download link? But now, after running a software company for a number of years, I totally understand why they don't just hand out that download link. And so having that portal is just really nice because we can, it can be exactly what it is, a portal to everything in one place and have one account that is used throughout everything through, validating through the portal, through the phone app, through the forum, that is all the same account. And so just very, very helpful and makes for a better experience. Um,
Nice.
we did have one last question. We do gotta answer this though before we go. And it is true, is he's asking about multiple locations with kind of one manager, and that's true. That's something that's kind of vexed us from day one with the portal, is adding that sort of top level control. Is okay, here's all the users in location A, now let me switch to location B. And currently that does require separate portal accounts for each of those locations. So you're
Yeah, we
yeah.
we did start building the infrastructure to
Hmm.
make that accessible, to view all of the different locations with the parent account. But the other features, like you said, to access the different user lists, different project lists, etc. Um, let's put that on the list and let's get to it soon because that's a question that pops up more and more often these days.
Yeah, yeah, especially with, just consolidation in the industry is certainly not slowing down, and definitely want to make that easier for people. So yes, that is definitely on our list. We will get to that very soon. Um, on that note, I think we have crushed this topic, and I hope everyone really appreciated it. If you don't have your portal account, I hope you're rushing to do that right now. Keep the ideas coming for future webinars, please. And we also are happy to host you as a guest webinar speaker if you have a particular topic or technique that you feel pretty skilled on and you'd love to show off to LandFX users. Please drop us a line in that regard. Otherwise, have a fantastic weekend, and we will catch you next time.
All right. Thank you.